6 o'clock. Hurry up. On, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 22nd meeting of the Board of Selectmen / Sewer Commissioners. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Chair, all 5 selectmen are present, as is Attorney Bowen, and I believe the interim town administrator will be returning shortly.
Okay. Any bills?
There are no bills.
We have the appointment to the Disability Commission.
Yep, we have one appointment to make, so I move, as soon as I get the paper, to appoint Kenneth P. Barrows Sr. to the Wareham Commission on Disability to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2015.
Have a motion made, seconded by? Second. Mr. Titlebaum. Anything else on the question? Mr. Barrows was interviewed last week. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0. Next, we have the appointment to the Board of Selectmen representative for school committee negotiations.
Motion for Carolyn to take that position.
A motion made by Mr. Slavin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Titlebaum. On the question, I have a question. I did kind of hear what this was about. I'm still not picture perfect on what this is supposed to do. But, so what we're saying is, we're going to take a member of an elected board, put it, and assign that member to another elected board to vote on negotiations.
We're allowed to.
For that, I understand we're allowed to. That's not my question.
Okay.
My question is, why would somebody do that? Why are we doing that? I understand we're allowed to. My question is, why are we doing it?
It allows for input from the town side into negotiations because of the costs. Whatever the school develops for cost, it affects the town side going forward as well.
And is this going to work? My second question then is, since you decided to answer the question,
Sorry, Dave.
is this going to work the same way this little quasi-subcommittee works now? That they're going to go to a meeting with the school department, come back to the Board of Selectmen, and get our opinion? So we're just sending somebody to vote without any authorization of this board?
The purpose of the position is because the Board of Selectmen has a right to have a vote. So if the school committee is a committee of 5, for the purposes of contract negotiations, ratification of the contract, they're a board of 6, being that one Board of Selectmen member. That one individual obviously only has one vote and can't sway it either way. But the goal is to ensure that the school and the town are sort of sharing the same vision financially going forward.
So the simple answer to my question is yes. We are assigning a member from this
Yes.
board to another board to vote without any input from this board.
This board can certainly give input. There's nothing that says they can't.
And I'm not trying to be difficult here. I just want to, because I'm not crazy about this. And now, that's the answer. I'm not expecting to win the vote, but I'm not going to vote to have one of our members go to another committee and have no say in how they vote. At least with the other stuff, they bring it back, we discuss it, and we have someone with us, we discuss it, and then we have input. And I don't see that happening here, unless I'm wrong. And that's not what I just heard. Mrs. Begley.
Mr. Chair, I understand your concerns, but I wonder, I doubt that they have the discussions and vote immediately. We seldom do when we're doing any kind of contract negotiations. And certainly, I would hope that Selectman Winslow would come back to the board and say that she needs to discuss with the board what is being proposed with their contract negotiations.
Yeah. Okay, no, I mean, I'm not a big fan of it, so it doesn't matter what I think. I just wanted to get those answers. So if I am the lone vote here, I want to make sure that I am at least doing the right thing for myself. Okay, anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. 4-1-0. Next up.
Appointments and interviews to the Plymouth County
Yeah,
Aquifer.
we may have them tomorrow night.
Okay.
We tried to get them for either Monday or Tuesday.
There's no licenses or permits. The interim town administrator is not here to give his report. We have the Bourne first quarter billing. I move to approve the Town of Bourne usage fee first quarter billing, which covers a period of July 1st, 2012 to September 30th, 2012, in the amount of $0 with a credit to be applied to the second quarter of $2,016.44.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Slavin on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Is that correct? Thought I heard some noise.
Next, we
Okay.
have commercial oyster fishery, commercial soft shell clam regulations.
Mr. Buckminster, how are you this evening? You see how fast things are going? We only have 60 minutes.
You ready? Okay, here we go. Soft shell clam regulations have not changed from the previous 2 years. I will just need an acceptance of how they are written. No explanations, no changes. The second one is the oysters fishery. The only thing that I've had to change is I've reduced the amount of oysters that can be taken. I've cut it down to 2 days a week for harvesting. Our stock is depleted. The only way we're going to protect it is save what we have and then start a rehabilitation project, aquaculture program to try and rebuild the stock. So they can still harvest, but it's going to be cut down substantially.
What's that on? Did you say soft shell or?
Soft shell clam regulations are all set. How it's
And
written.
the
there's no
oysters,
changes.
what's short?
Oysters, that's our primary fishery here, and I feel the need that we need to protect it. And going forward is reducing the amount that we can take and try and bring it back a little bit. We did it a few years ago when I first started here, and we came back with a pretty good oyster population, and I fully intend on doing that next year as one of our projects, start building up the areas again.
All right, Mr. Slavin,
And
you had your hand up?
yeah, Gary, this is all based on input from the stakeholders?
I'm sorry?
This is all based on input from the stakeholders as well?
For the most part, last year, quite a few of the commercial fishermen did complain about it. They still fish the areas, but they were complaining that the stock was depleted. The only way we can nip it in the butt is act on it, so.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions for Mr. Buckminster? Mrs. Begley?
Hi, Gary, is this just commercial? What
This
about,
is strictly commercial.
what about residential?
That would have to be brought up to the board on a separate note, because this is strictly for the commercial fishing. The board wishes to stop oyster fishing for recreational, like, we can address it and stop it. The commercial guys are allowed two level bushels a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. That's how it used to run. I've cut it down to Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're allowed 2 bushels, so it knocks 6 bushels per harvester off. They take a lot of the stock that's on the island. They work it hard compared to recreational, but I'm just trying to preserve it for those guys mostly, and the recreational stock is sufficient enough.
All right, so if the recreational does raise a concern for you, I hope that you come to this board
Absolutely.
with that.
I actually was thinking about that today, addressing that issue, so if we feel the need, I definitely think we should address it.
Okay. What do you need from us?
Just a motion to accept these or not accept them, or whatever you'd like.
I'll make a motion to accept the new commercial oyster fishery and soft shell regulations as provided by Howard Master Buckminster.
We have a motion. Second by Mr. Titlebaum. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? 500. Do you need 2, Gary?
I'm sorry?
Do you need 2 or just
You
one?
can
is
combine
fine?
them to the commercial soft
Okay.
shell and oyster.
I don't
Got
think we
it.
have a copy of both of them to sign.
No, there's only one.
I think I tied it all into
Oh,
one.
okay, all right. Okay.
Because
All right,
the
thank you
only
very
thing we got
much.
is this one. Oh, yeah, it's on the other side.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next up,
Next up, we have EDF funds.
Mr. Titlebaum.
EDF funds.
Right? This is yours? For Merchants Way? You want to talk about Merchants Way?
Well, we have Mr. Pena here.
That's right. I asked him to come.
Let's have him step up and tell us what his thoughts are.
Hey, good evening, Sal. How are you?
Hi, how you doing? How's it going?
You asked me about it.
Yeah, I did.
It's all up to you now. Go ahead. It's yours.
Sal, why don't you tell us about the Merchants Way train station
Okay,
and what you found out about it?
okay. A couple things. I've been talking with John Pearson over at Cape Cod Rail. And he is submitting he's going to forward over to me a plan that he has to operate the train. They want to run it 2 days a week, 2 times a day, in the morning and in the evening, and they want to run it on the weekends for about 15 weeks in the summer. Now, one of the things that he did say to me, and I haven't seen the numbers yet, is that it may need to be subsidized to a certain degree. So at this point, I have no idea how much that number would be.
Can you talk about using that existing train station?
The existing train station is a public facility, and under block grant funds, it's possible for us to use some funds to help fix that. And it might be a bargaining chip that we could use to work with the train station as we go forward. So that'd be a possibility.
You and I talked about this before, right?
Yeah,
How bad
we
is
own
that
it.
building?
It's not that bad. We need the train station belongs to the town. But the train station, we're required by the deed, we go back to New Haven Railroad 1954, we have to maintain 1,500 square feet of building for transportation use. When we looked at it before, when I was hoping to do the business and visitor center, we thought we could take and simply box in very inexpensively the building. The bathrooms are locked up, but they're all usable, so there's water in there, so it's not a great expense. Actually, I believe Gary, who just left, and I think Jane Donahue and a couple other people, about 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years ago, we basically got a bunch of volunteers together. Originally, we were going to put a whole bunch of it together for very inexpensive. That was the whole idea originally for the business visitor center. So we can do this. This also, as what Sal's working on, it also opens up the possibility of a gated crossing by the actual train station to go over into the river and use the riverway and help some development that way.
Gated crossing.
They have a special gated crossing. There's one in Bourne. I believe, Sal, $80,000, I think, is the price that they quoted.
I think that was.
And what it does, it controls the train going through. When the gate comes down, it's down, you can cross it. The train they have no liability. They'll sign off and let us actually cross.
Like one for a car?
Similar,
Similar
but
to that?
but for actual people walking across the tracks. It eliminates the liability issue that's sitting there.
Okay.
Has a lot of potential.
Is that something for which we could use community development funds?
I don't know about the gated crossing. I know the building we could use it.
Right.
It's a public facility, so we could use that. So I could check into the gated crossing.
Yeah, 'cause I'm just wondering if there's some way to shoehorn it in as public access
you know-
and an easement over
Yeah, my
their
guess,
land,
my
that kind
guess
of thing,
is
and
it
try
might be
to...
a reasonable thing to do, because whenever you do public safety issues, again, if you consider it part of infrastructure, public infrastructure, I think it's possible to do. So I can look into it for sure.
Now, when we talk too about subsidy of rail, once we subsidize the rail, then can we make a public transportation argument and use that as a shoehorn to get across the railroad tracks? I'm just trying to, I don't know about any of these things. We'd have to look at them a lot more closely, certainly, before we committed to anything. But I'm just trying to bat about ideas right now to take back to the table and try to see what you can
Yeah, I think the
develop
first thing
further.
would be to look at the plan that they have, because I haven't seen all the numbers. So I would just caution us to
Right.
make sure that we see the real numbers, because I know that they partnered, I forget who John Pearson mentioned, but he mentioned another organization that they partnered with, which got them a number of trains. So I think they picked up some extra engines, which originally had been a problem when they first started. So they have those, but it's still a question of until you can build up the ridership. Yeah, the idea would be to go to Lakeville, to connect at the Lakeville connection.
That would be
Yeah.
outstanding. I
Yeah.
use that train in Middleborough a lot now. Or Lakeville, whatever you call it.
This is the same project, basically, they talked about 2 years ago, where they wanted the town to be the signee for a bond, which they would pay back the town.
Right,
by
that was for
butt
the,
cars.
my understanding was that was for the actual cars.
That was
but
for the butt
now they
cars.
have the cars, so now it's a question of, can they get ridership enough to sustain the cost for it?
The parking lot there is full all the time. Now, does this also lend itself to if there's some activities there, does it also lend itself to the tourism and visitor center as well?
We would probably, because of the deed, which I had no idea existed that way until I went and did some more research, because nobody seemed to know anything until I asked the question and it tweaked something. We found the deed that went way back. We're allowed to put an additional building on there from the New Haven deed that we have, but we have to maintain at least 1,500 square feet of transportation, so the answer is yes.
Okay. Anything else?
A question. I heard the word subsidy, and I'm hoping you're talking state or federal, and not municipal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because I haven't seen the reports. So I can't say.
Because if it's municipal,
Gonna be tough.
tough. It's going to be impossible, given the forecast that we've all been apprised of. So I certainly, if this can work, that would be great. If this could work without a dime from the town, that would be fantastic, because the town doesn't have a dime.
That's why I
Big-
said I think we need to be cautious.
Yes, I agree with you.
Well, the biggest problem is gonna be parking.
Yeah, I think, one of the things.
That's a
that-
problem. I mean, I'm not worried about revenue. Revenue, it's gonna come from the state feds, or we can raise our revenue to do a worthwhile project.
Yeah, I think-
But, and if you use parking to pay for it, there's no place to park there.
Interesting you would say that, because I read a study, which was, I think, back in 2006, where they looked at an intermodal station. It was a study that was undertaken by the town. And at that time, they thought that either the current spot that's there, the Tremont Nail Factory, could be actually a rail station. There was one
Right.
throwaway line in the study, though, which I thought was fascinating, and it said that should the fire station ever become available, that might make a good station.
Yeah,
And
in
my
that
thought
area.
immediately was, that would, to me, it seems like the most logical place. So if the fire station ultimately does move, it makes some sense. It's got parking there, it's a building, you could run buses into it, because it obviously has fire trucks in there. It's something to think about.
Because I'm telling you, that Lakeville station, the issue I see there, I mean, so far I've been dropped off every time I go there. I don't leave my car there, but it's parking. That place is mobbed.
We'll see if we can buy the fire station for $1.
That's what they bought it for. So,
The Tremont Nail is another
They bought it
good
from the town
area
for
too, you know.
$1.
There's plenty of land there. You could have some little coffee shops there at Tremont Nail, with
There's
plenty
more-
of parking,
There's more
and,
up on there.
you know, right along there. I mean, you got a few opportunities to look at. But yeah, parking, I think, is the big issue. I wonder how many of those cars in that Lakeville lot are people from Wareham and Onset and Falmouth and over this way, Bourne, right? I bet you there's a lot.
I think there's a Serpent study that identifies several areas in town that would probably be far more feasible than that spot because of the parking
Yeah.
and the fact that you're going to get all that upwards Cape people. I don't remember when that study was done.
Around 2005 or 6.
That's
That's,
the intermodal one, I think.
that's the intermodal, that's the one that wasn't accepted at town meeting. But that one there also referenced Tremont. It also referenced Tremont, actually. It also referenced the possibility where Walmart's located, there's a lot of land behind there as another possible place, because they were looking for a place where they could have the trains stack up at night, because those diesel, if they're running the Bud cars, they don't shut those off. Once they turn them on, they stay on, especially in the wintertime.
Well, you know, to be honest, that might solve a number of problems right there if you looked at that location.
Hmm.
You can keep the businesses in East Wareham.
And with regard to the railroad, I mean, just because the 1951 deed says something, that since they're the ones who hold sort of that perpetual, for want of a better word, easement over it, there's no reason we couldn't horse trade with that as well. I mean, it's not etched in stone just because it's in the original document. We can do things there.
I mean, you could, yeah, but you could use Main Street as a drop-up pickup zone with no train parking, you know, for people on foot. But I'd feel more comfortable pursuing this idea, working together with Walmart and try and utilize that space.
The new Walmart?
The old Walmart.
The old one,
Oh,
is
yeah.
once they vacate it.
Yeah, you're a little too close to Senator Murray's house for that. Read the papers.
What?
That's a little too close to Senator Murray's house, Walmart.
the old one?
Yeah. She wants that train station right there on Main Street, Buzzards Bay.
Buzzards Bay turned it down.
Oh, well, but we're not talking about Buzzards Bay, Main
We need
Street.
to
We're
get a
talking-
hold of Mark Pacheco to work on that.
Okay. I just think that you could solve a number of problems by looking at that space for a station with parking and using the Main Street station as the tourist center and simply a drop-off pickup
Annex.
zone.
Well, they only stop for a minute,
The
so.
Wareham Center Annex.
I think it
Whatever
was-
you want to call it,
Yeah.
but just so long as you're clear that there's no train parking, you know, but there's lots of people who come by foot or who may live in the, you know, that area that don't mind walking a few blocks down to the train
Well, it'd
station.
be helpful to have a stop there, you're right, to have the train itself stop there, even if it's not a
It might,
full-fledged.
it might be helpful just to
Commuter
people,
spot.
to
Right, yeah.
people in town who can walk across and get the train at Walmart and then come uptown, who don't have transportation on their own and who currently, rely on the Gatra bus
Yep.
schedule. So, but that would be my preference, Sal. I think trying to put something like that downtown, you're gonna get a lot of pushback from the merchants that are already complaining about parking after the,
They wouldn't complain about the customers, though.
what?
I don't think they would complain about the customers.
And if the customers actually were doing business.
Let's put it this way, I would be happy to be a donut shop operator there, or a newspaper seller, somebody who.
Dry cleaning business, there's a
Dry
lot of
cleaning,
things.
there's things you can have that would benefit from such a thing. There's also some businesses who probably would complain about the parking. So there's,
But I think if you
Concerns either
use,
way.
if you use that as a stop, you can hop on or hop off by foot, or bike, or whatever, and you put your main station down, I'm sorry, I keep turning my back to you. You put your main,
We have our king feeler here, put some feelers out.
See what we come up with.
See what,
Take a look.
we want to
I'll
hear
go back to
from, we
the
want to hear
study.
from them.
I'll go back to the
We
study
don't
and
matter,
see what
we
it
want to
said.
hear from them,
Yeah.
because I bet you there are some businesses who would really promote that.
And I'll go back and look at the study to see what it said about that.
if we get the study,
I think
could you
it's
copy
good.
us on that as well?
Absolutely, yeah, I can send it to you.
I have a copy somewhere.
There's a lot of good stuff there.
did you have something for us?
I do, when you have, I have some good news. I think at the last time I was in front of the board, I talked about a grant that I had submitted for concept drawings. Well, we were awarded the grant. So-
Outstanding.
So what I did was I brought copies of the announcement. This was the announcement off the Serped website. So we are one of, I think, 15 towns that are part of the South Coast Rail project that were awarded grants. And so we have a grant, it's up to $10,000 for an architect to do concept drawings along Merchants Way and Bessie Powers.
Way to go.
Great,
Great.
thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sal.
And you also have.
All right.
we
Is
also-
there anything else?
Yeah, there's also a 20-hour from Serpent.
I did read that email, but I hadn't confirmed that. but
We
yeah.
got something else coming from Serpent as well.
Okay.
Thank you,
Why
Sam.
don't you sit for the next one on the agenda? If that's okay, Mr. Chairman?
Discussion in town meeting?
No, creation of beach and tourism.
Beach and tourism.
Oh, beach and tourism, I already put an X next to that. Okay, you're on again.
Okay.
Keep it brief.
One of the things I-
6:25.
One of the things I talked about during the political campaign this spring was the fact that we don't have a town website promoting tourism. You can't go to visitwareham.com because it doesn't exist. We don't have any means in town hall specifically devoted to promoting our beaches, our lakes and rivers, our kayaking opportunities, our sailing opportunities, and just generally our recreational opportunities that, are sort of bestowed upon us just by virtue of the fact that we're surrounded by water every which way. And it seems to me that there's a lot of revenue to be had out there that we're not getting. There's a lot of business to be had out there that we're not getting. So what I'm proposing here is that we establish a beach and tourism commission. The original mission of this commission is to serve as an advisory board to the Board of Selectmen. In thinking about the makeup of it, I ran through my head and I thought, gee, well, Mr. Pina from CETA would be a natural person to be on it. We've got a harbor master, we've got to talk to him. What about municipal maintenance? So by the time I was done thinking of all the people who would be a logical fit for this, it was just about every town department head. And so you can't have a committee that does that. And I don't know that it's necessary for those people to be on the committee so much as it is necessary for the committee to liaise with them and find out what they think about various ideas. So with that in mind, what I've proposed here is a commission that would have one member for the Board of Selectmen and then 4 at-large members. The preference for those at-large members as far as qualifications would be backgrounds in land use and business development, marketing, and the tourism and hospitality industries. Ultimately, what I would like to see, and it's not something this board can do because you got to, through the charter, you'd have to go through town meeting, is I think we're going to need to set up a department to deal with this. We're going to have to hire at some point a professional tourism agent. Now, Obviously, we don't have the money to do this right now, and in any event, we don't have a town meeting vote to do it. But down the road, that's sort of my vision for this. Once we get a commission in here that can advise us on how we can start increasing our revenues, and so on and so forth. And I see a broad, I don't want to say purview, because they're not going to have the authority to do anything. So I see a broad focus of investigation of opportunity for this group. We know we have parking problems in this town. We know that we miss out on parking revenues in this town. We know that we have beaches that are sort of underutilized. We know that we have beaches that seem to be reserved for residents only, but yet other people get stickers for them. We've got a hodgepodge out there of use, of management, of regulation. And I think we need a lot more uniformity in that regard. And I think we need to start out by looking at this, because all this can do is to help grow revenues. And that's really what I'm looking at, and create opportunities for our people to work. So that's sort of the long and short of it. I've got a handout here if you want to take this. I don't know that we necessarily want to vote on this tonight, or if you want to come back and put it on a future agenda and think about what the board thinks about this.
Questions or comments from the board first?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Peter, how is this, some of the questions that you ask, I thought would be answered or investigated or researched by the Community Events Committee?
They've got a part of it, but community events is focused strictly on just the community events. They're not an organization, for example, that, and I've had this conversation actually with Mike Hogan of Makepeace about opening up some of his lands for kayaking. They're not going to be involved in that kind of thing. They're not going to be involved necessarily in getting to people to the beaches when it's a non-holiday event. Community events is for events. It's not for the entire tourism season. So certainly there's somebody that I would certainly expect a Beach and Tourism Commission to become involved with, to have significant contact with, just as I would expect such a commission to have the same contact and involvement with Mr. Pina, with the harbor master, with municipal maintenance, whomever. So I think that community events, while it's certainly significant in terms of what we do here in the summer, I'm looking at this also as more than just summer. People are in kayaks all year round now. I don't frankly understand why somebody would want to go paddle up a river when it's 32 degrees out and it's raining, but there's actually nuts who like to do this. So I think we need to cater to them and to think about how to get more of them here as part of an overall strategy. So that's my response to community events.
Have you had conversations with other towns that have beach access or several lakes, that kind of thing? I mean, have you had conversations with anybody in Dennis or Brewster or any of those places to see if they have something like this? And if they do, what were its failings? What would they do differently when they instituted it? Or do they not have something like that but have a successful program?
Well, I think Yarmouth, for some reason, comes to mind, and I do think that they have an official body. I think they probably have as well a tourism agent. So I think they're a couple of steps ahead of this proposal. But again, we don't have the authority to go and create a new department and hire a tourism agent. We've gone
No, I
now
understand.
Anyway.
I understand, but there are several towns, nearby.
Yeah, but what I see this as, certainly that's something that I would expect this Beach and Tourism Commission to do. I would expect them to go out and, rather than reinvent the wheel, contact the town halls in other towns and say, what are you doing about this? How do you handle it? How do you handle parking in congested areas? How do you handle beach access? How do you charge for beach access if you can? I mean, a lot of our beaches you can't charge for beach access, just by the way they've been conveyed to the town. But we've got to explore all these things, and that's really what I'm looking for here. This is more an exploratory mechanism that can come back to us and possibly the town meeting as well and suggest policy changes. But they're not going to be policy making. They're going to be sort of policy discoverers, if you will. So that's kind of how I see it.
One of my concerns is this. I think it's a great idea to promote our beaches and tourism. We have 30-something committees now, and we have committees that can't have meetings because they don't have a quorum.
Well, I'm thinking that the focus and the criteria I've got here, I mean, we certainly, and of course the whole purpose is to create more of these people, but we do have people involved in the specific sort of criteria that I'm looking for here. We do have people involved in land use and business development. There are people in town who have marketing experience. We certainly have people who work in restaurants and inns and things of that nature. So I'm hopeful that we'll attract a pretty decent candidate pool from which to select members. Or that the appointing authority actually is what's going to do it for those. And the appointing authority, just for the record, would be the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator or interim, and the town moderator. That's what I see as the appointing authority for the at-large, and the selectmen would choose the selectman member. So, any thoughts?
Mrs. Winslow?
Well, I'm not prepared to make a decision on this one way or another tonight. I want to be able to think about it and give it some thought. I do share Mrs. Begley's concern that, you know, we definitely have a great deal of talented people, but whether they're willing to volunteer their time and serve the community, you can't round them up and make them.
No, but if we don't try to get their input, then we just keep treading water. So.
Well, you know, I mean, I think that this, you know, along with things that I've heard Mr. Slavin talk about and some of the things that I've talked about, you know, kind of all play into a larger picture. You know, you're talking about a beach and tourism commission. You know, Mr. Slavin's talked periodically about a business roundtable, and I mentioned a few months ago putting all the stakeholders at a table to look at these issues. Cranberry Highway, you know, we're going to have major construction there with Walmart's leaving. You know, is now a good time to change zoning? What sort of businesses do we want there? I mean, maybe instead of doing 3 different things, maybe we should be combining those into one sort of more broad vision to accomplish everything we're trying to accomplish.
Well, I kind of see us as the sort of the big clearinghouse for those ideas, or at least for, you know, other committees that have a more sort of specialist bent to come to us. That's kind of, and present through us to the community at large. So that's my thought about that. I agree. We do need to think about Cranberry Highway. We have a bunch of different things we need to think about on this board.
Well, I mean, you know, and my concern is that as we move into, you know, a major construction project and, you know, growth in West Wareham, you know, when you have a group that's at a table that has, you know, every stakeholder, business people, landowners, government officials, volunteers for the community, all the interested parties at one table who can look at a piece of the community, West Wareham, East Wareham, downtown, and say, you know, here's what it is today, these are the changes coming along, this is the infrastructure we should put in, this is what we need to have happen if we want this to come, or if we don't want this to be here, this is what we need to do. You know, and work together with the master plan, dust it off, get it out, you know, that's, and I think that one of the benefits of that is not only is the community sort of taking a proactive stance at developing their own economic development and driving that development forward, but if you include people like the inns and the, you know, the other businesses that are catering to tourists, then those people are sitting at the table and saying, well, but we really need to get more beach traffic here, and if you do this, that's going to impact me. I guess one of the...
Well, I would think that they would come forward anyway if you're talking about a highway proposal. I mean, as
Well,
we know the business community has not been silent about Cranberry Highway.
I guess what I'm saying is that I think that we're all kind of driving towards the same thing, but creating multiple groups of people to kind of drive towards the same end seems like we're duplicating our efforts.
Mr. Slavin?
I think we can go ahead with something like this, but focus it on an area which isn't being touched at all. What should happen in the long run, looking a long distance away, is that you're going to have a department in the town of Wareham that's going to be a beach and tourism department rather than a committee. But until we have some substance that we can get funding and do things with looking for grants, etc. If you look outside, like southern Connecticut all along, almost every town has that type of thing in it. Even on the Cape, there's certain ones that either they do it as a group or through the Cape Cod Commission. But I think, I can't speak for Peter, but I can see as a long-term goal that we actually have a beach and tourism department, which is then, you have a lot more control how it all works that way. But to start with a small piece, if you concentrate on a set area that we don't touch at all and isn't being touched, is a good way to start to get the interest up.
All I'm suggesting isn't that I don't support it, it's just that I think we're all talking about the same thing in multiple different ways, and rather than create multiple committees or multiple commissions or multiple things, tapping the same group of talent in the community, we should have a good long talk about what we truly want to accomplish and maybe create one commission or one committee that might be larger so that we can get, the whole thing is getting people into the community, getting them to the beaches, getting them in our merchants, having them buy things, eat at our restaurants, stay at our inns. But it boils down to what's attracting people into the community, how the access that people have to these things, how signage, all those things, but they all tie in together. That's all I'm saying. I'd love to have a tourism department, but I just don't want to see us duplicate our efforts and in the process alienate the community.
Understand.
I think it's a great idea. I'm behind it. There is no big committee. Any committee over 6 gets nothing done. And the more of these smaller groups that you can get, if you can get interested people to work on them, then you can develop a big committee that Mrs. Winslow was talking about. But you don't start there, I don't think, because then nobody ever shows up and you can't get a good meeting date, and you're interested in A and Sal's interested in D. And it's good to start to uncover this stuff and take the dust off of some of these ideas, because otherwise they're never going to get shined up.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, I was almost thinking, you mentioned Sal. Sal is an employee of a department, but I was thinking that maybe Mrs. Connaughton would be a good permanent member, or the chairman of CETA,
That's a possibility.
as not a general seat, but as a
As a directed permanent seat.
because she's the conduit between, or he or she, whoever that chairman is the conduit between everything that he does. He reports to them. He gives them the whole layout, right? And she has knowledge, or he or she would have knowledge of everything that's going on in CETA, and we wouldn't want to be tying him up on a committee.
Yeah.
But certainly the chairman of that board, I would suggest that if you would.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there are 2 big pieces to what you're talking about. One is
Why do we even waste our time?
the state tourism department connecting back, linking back to the state department of tourism. And the other is the chambers of commerce. I think it's really important to tie that organization into what they're doing, because they represent all the businesses. So whatever role you imagine for this commission, I think that those two pieces need to be included. Recognition of how it interfaces with the state, and how it interfaces with the.
All right, so you want to clean that up a little bit, throw some more points in.
Throw some more points in, and
Put it back, put it back.
I'm mindful of that.
Oh, you've heard everybody's comments. You want to put it back?
I've heard that, and
Hey, I
2 weeks,
think.
3 2 weeks, 3
couple
weeks.
weeks.
You've
3
got 3
weeks.
votes, so do what, but my.
Well, no, I wasn't prepared. We don't have anything to vote on. It's just a discussion, so there's no
Nothing in
vote.
paper yet.
Not on
So,
the agenda for a vote, so it was just here for a discussion. So think.
so
I've
when do you want,
I've thought about it, thank you.
when do you want to
Well
bring it
said.
back? When do you want to bring it back, so I can make a note?
Let's see. Today's the 22nd, 29th.
Yeah, just 3, 4 weeks, tell me what it is.
How about 3 weeks from now?
It's too, every
Perfect.
dog's got a medical appointment.
You can bring it back and discuss it. If you're ready, we can take a vote on it. All right, next up, town meeting. Where is Derek? Still over there?
He's over there.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Sal.
Where'd he go? Hey, Derek.
No.
Did y'all get a copy? That's the motions he's going to ask everybody to refer to.
Did you get one, Ellen?
4 minutes, Mr. Administrator. That's what you have.
What do we have for time?
Quarter of, 6:43.
Push the last one's off till tomorrow night.
No, he's got 4 minutes. It's 45 minutes. Come on.
All right, everybody has, these are the motions for tonight for the meeting as they've been adjusted. Just to give you an idea of Article 1, the breakdown, we received the additional cherry sheet aid, and in speaking with Jared Curtis from the DOR, we need to make sure that we spell that out as raising and appropriating, or even though it's on the cherry sheet aid, if we don't raise and appropriate, they won't count it during setting the tax rate. So we want to make sure we do that for the cherry sheet aid, for the second part, the McKinney-Vento. Make sure we have that on there, especially if that article passes, so we don't go into deficit. We did receive the certified number from the DOR this morning, so I'm not worried. If that passes, I'm not worried about us setting the tax rate with that. The rest of this is just what was on there, similar as before, except for the reduce the reserve fund by 15,000. That's in case the EMS defibrillators article passes. We need to have a funding mechanism for that on there. So we've reduced the reserve fund by $15,000 to have those funds available. If in the long run it doesn't pass, or whatever happens on there, we can always make that account whole at the May special to put that on there.
That's the 40 grand for the defibrillators?
No, 15,000 for the EMS defibrillators for 10% of the cost of there. They're going for a grant.
He's expecting a grant for that one.
So,
Oh, for this year?
For the defibrillator, not that one. This is what, EMS is separate, that's the police.
EMS,
That's right, the two different defibrillator proposals.
they are Article 10, is the
Ah.
EMS.
It's not on this sheet, though.
So this Article 1 also, besides just the transfers of the increases in our budget, also does the raising and appropriating to make sure that that's all settled, and some of the interdepartmental transfers on there. The rest of these are
Could a custodian please go to the town meeting? A custodian please go to the town meeting.
mostly the same.
Somebody's sick.
As you can see in the McKinney-Vento article, number 6, we put in their number, the number that was certified. I don't believe there's anything else that would be different. At the end, we've put the Westfield report, which would be brought up on a slide as
You want to
well.
read that real quick?
Yeah.
Did you add anything?
I did not, it
Oh,
was
you-
too perfect.
It was too perfect. It really didn't say anything, but
Which is.
why don't you go ahead and read that?
Quarter of 7.
The Board of Selectmen
Huh?
appointed the Westfield
Quarter to
Study
seven.
I have the
Committee.
time.
The committee has been extended several times, and I've expended many hours reviewing, editing, and updating all areas of the request for proposals, and advising the Board of Selectmen on the best possible ingredients to successfully develop senior housing at the Westfield
I
site.
don't know if you put a
The
copy.
Board of Selectmen,
Oh,
working
it's in
with
your
the Westfield
packet.
Committee, the Office
Is
of
it
the
on
Town
here?
Administrator, and Town Council, has developed and approved several requests for proposal. These requests for proposals were all returned with no developer responses. Workshops were scheduled for the town to meet with developers, and no developers accepted the invitation. The town also asked for suggestions from the developers, and response was minimal, ranging from money not being available for this type of project to the political climate in Wareham. Going forward, the Board of Selectmen will continue to pursue options for senior housing in Wareham, and will report back to the Springtown meeting in April 2013.
That's pretty simple. Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
We've got entered into the system July and August revenue and expenditures. Mr. Kudus, the town accountant, has started to enter them into the format that will be easy for the board to read, as well as a memo attached to that with some of the trending and such.
All right,
One question, Steve.
real quick.
Did we get a final answer on the defibrillators for the police? There was a question about the cost per unit.
The cost per unit that I'd always known was 2,000 on there, so I put an estimated 20 defibrillators on there. My understanding is they might be a little cheaper now, so we can amend it on town meeting floor if all we want to do is the 20. I don't have a paper on there, what the new, because I think I'm still using the projections from roughly 2 years ago, what the units were. My main thing is that they connect to what the EMS has as well, to make sure that they're appropriate. So my suggestion on there again was for 20 units.
Can I just ask,
Very good, thank you guys very
can I
much
just
for the
ask
work.
a question, please?
Quickly,
I will.
because we
just
have
to-
to finish this agenda. We'll stay here until it's done.
On the defibrillators, I think the distinction needs to be made that the EMS defibrillators are by far different than the ones that the police officers will have in their cruisers, by necessity.
The 12 lead, because that's what the state's requiring on them.
That's correct, and that's why they're so much more expensive. And then the other thing, you probably told us, but maybe I forgot, the increase in the Council on Aging salary from $22,300, what's that for?
That is for a new position. It would be the intake coordinator / billing clerk. GATRA is now going to expand their services, which requires a different entity to actually perform those services, so they can go beyond our normal working hours. However, one of the people that did all our billing in there was funded through the GATRA grant. So now we need to make a decision. We need somebody to do the billing in there, and just to do the billing plus an intake coordinator position for when people walk in, to truly have somebody that's got everything ready for them. And if somebody's coming in to just say, let's use the food pantry, the thought is to have somebody in there that can also tell them, well, you also qualify for this,
Okay.
and that.
So this is still absent a Council on Aging director?
Correct.
And how many hours?
This would be full-time on there.
So this would be a full-time benefited position?
Yes. Right now, it's a benefited position through the GATRA contract.
But we don't pay, do we pay the benefits? Currently?
We get reimbursed for part of the benefits.
But this we would be on the hook for all of it?
Yes.
What's the $20,000 increase in legal services?
That would be to cover the Labor Council. If you remember last year, when we had the bill at the end of the year for roughly $60,000, that was even past when we've done this year's FY13's budget. So now, by increasing that total line to $220,000, it is the belief of Mr. Emerson there that will be enough money in there. I'm not going to look that we don't have many issues. So.
Is the inspectional services expenses coming from the, where is that coming from? Because it says increase, but we currently don't have an inspectional services director that we're not paying, correct?
We have the contractor in their inspectional services. So there's two. There's an increase from the inspectional services to expenses on there. Part of that's to defray the extra costs from 118 Sandwich Road. Part of that's also to pay the vendor. We cannot pay a vendor out of salary, or an independent contractor out of salary.
I thought we had a line item for Sandwich Road, that we encumbered money from the prior fiscal year.
We encumbered. The only one that was allowed to come over was $5,000 because we changed companies on there. The first company that was hired was fired on there, so the encumbered amount could not be brought over. So that drops off to free cash. We cannot legally use those funds because they were set up for one company. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you guys very much for the work. Moving right along, we received a complaint here. Mrs. Winslow, if you'd read that into the record. Mrs. Begley? No, there's 2 pages. Both pages.
This contains executive discussion.
Rich, you have a copy of this? Right?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I am the complainant, and I submitted this complaint on the 28th, and here it is the 22nd.
Yeah.
But I have to say that some of the content of this complaint contains executive material, so I would suggest that you tread carefully.
It's a matter of public record. It needs to be read into the record.
Go ahead.
We have a complaint, an open meeting law complaint filed by Mrs. Begley as an individual. This complaint involves the Wareham Board of Selectmen, who is a public body of a city or town, specifically Selectman Titlebaum. The date of the alleged violation is September 13th, 2012. The description of the alleged violation, and I'll just read verbatim.
Certainly.
I just spoke with someone in Affordable Housing Trust. Peter Titlebaum told the committee in open meeting session that Rich Bowen was parting ways with BBM and that BBM was parting ways with the town. He also told them that, quote, "We have decided not to pursue the 2 Beach Street extension issue." Selectman Titlebaum also made disparaging remarks about Attorney Tallerman during this meeting. Mr. Suey was present as a member of AHT and has been working with Habitat and is a tenant of Mr. LaCava's at 11 D'Angelo Road and has been assisting Mr. LaCava with regards to the property in question. I consider the issue with Town Council to be attorney-client privilege until discussed by the board, and the other issue was discussed in executive session. Consider this a formal complaint, and I will await your response. Addendum. I submitted this complaint to the chairman of the Wareham Board of Selectmen on the above date. The topic of 2 Beach Street extension property is currently litigation with the town of Wareham and has been discussed in executive session. The meeting minutes have not been approved or released. Selectman Titlebaum was not at liberty to discuss this with anyone. He discussed this issue during an open meeting of a public body, Affordable Housing Trust, on September 13th, 2012. The action that Mrs. Begley requests the public body to take in response to the complaint is: Selectman Titlebaum should make a full and public apology to the Board of Selectmen for violating the trust that the board members and the electorate placed in him, and apologize to the Affordable Housing Trust Committee. Signed, Ellen Begley, September 28th, 2012.
Okay, I received this complaint from one member of the board against another, and as the chairman, it came to me. I am not going to attempt to involve myself in any decision amongst members of the board, because that would be a conflict on my part. So I therefore reached out to our esteemed town council, who represents the board, for his opinion. Mr. Bowen.
Mr. Chairman, it's my opinion that no open meeting law violation occurred in these allegations. These are the documents that are reviewed in reaching that determination.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. There are 3 overall issues here. One is the jurisdiction to apply the open meeting law to a complaint by one selectman against another selectman. The open meeting law generally applies only to bodies in government, or governmental bodies rather than bodies in government. It's not typically used as an enforcement mechanism by one selectman against another selectman. But setting that apart, and that jurisdictional issue is not a small issue, when you look at the facts of the matter, I believe that the underlying concept, and I'll be quick, Mr. Chairman, the underlying concept here is that there was a violation of some confidentiality throughout. And so I think that's really the central fact. And so the question is, was there some sort of violation of confidentiality? So starting with the letter, which is on the last page of the package, it's a letter from Lefton Dabrowski and me dated September 10th, addressed to the interim town administrator, Derek Sullivan, signed by both Lisa Mead and myself. The letter is not marked confidential. It is intended to be a public document and a public record. So, and the date of the letter precedes the date of the alleged violation. It's certainly my opinion that there is no breach of any confidentiality in discussing something that would be a public record. Now, the concept of attorney-client privilege in the private sector as opposed to the public sector is very nuanced. If this were a private sector situation, it's possible that there might have been an attorney-client privilege issue there. But because we're public sector and this was a public document, that would not be the situation. So as it pertains to the release of the information in this letter, I don't think that's a violation of the conflict of interest of the open meeting law. The second issue relates to 2 Beach Street. As you will recall, and I'm mindful of the suggestion that there may be an executive session privilege here, but I'm also mindful of the fact that an executive session privilege only lasts as long as the litigation itself lasts. This board, no doubt, will be releasing the minutes in the near future since the purpose for the executive session has ceased to exist. This board voted to direct me to enter into an agreement for judgment with the plaintiffs in this matter. If you turn to the second, third, fourth page, pages 4 and 5, you'll see the agreement for judgment that was prepared in this case and signed by the parties, those being myself and opposing counsel, dated July 16th, 2012, which predates the date of the alleged violation. If you look at page 1 and actually page 2 and 3, you'll see spread over 2 pages the photocopy of a document that comes from Plymouth County Superior Court of Courts, indicating by the stamp that you'll see on page 2 that the agreement for judgment was filed on July 17th, 2012. Upon its filing with the clerk of the Superior Court in the public record, I conversed with one of the assistant clerks at the Superior Court a couple of times, as recently as Friday in person, and was informed that judgment entered in accordance with this document on July 17th, and that judgment would also be a matter of public record. And then finally, if you flip to the third from last and second from last pages